Alexander Volkanovski rose from being a 210-pound rugby player to become one of the most dominant featherweight champions the UFC has ever seen, defeating the likes of Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, and the Korean Zombie during his impressive reign. Standing at just 5'6", his ability to overcome size disadvantages and consistently outstrike elite opponents raises a key question. How did he become such a masterful stand-up fighter? Let's explore the core of Volkanovski's striking genius. We'll break down 4 fundamental feints, techniques common in MMA, but which Volkanovski utilizes with exceptional skill and purpose, turning them into devastatingly effective tools in his arsenal. To compensate for his shorter stature and reach compared to most opponents, Alexander Volkanovski had to develop a style that turned these potential disadvantages into strengths. He achieved this primarily by incorporating feints into nearly all of his striking sequences. This style is a staple of City Kickboxing, a gym headed by coach Eugene Behrman, and with fighters like Volk and former middleweight champion Israel Adesanya under his tutelage, we get to see feint-centric fighting executed at the highest level. At its most basic level, a feint is a deceptive movement performed to trick your opponent into thinking you're doing a particular move without actually doing it. Alexander Volkanovski's In and Out Feint is a staple of his striking arsenal. It's particularly dangerous because it effectively disguises potential entries, often utilizing a technique known as a pendulum step. This movement can facilitate takedowns, strikes to the body and head, kicks, and just about every single attack you can perform with the 8 limbs. The In and Out Feint serves as a crucial intelligence gathering tool for Volkanovski, allowing him primarily to collect data on his opponent's reactions. With a quick step in and then immediately back out, he effectively probes and assesses tendencies. Does the opponent retreat straight back or circle away? Do they instinctively drop their hands low or bring up a high guard? Is there a specific counter or defensive movement they consistently rely on? Once Volkanovski gathers this information, often after just a few such probes, he can anticipate his opponent's likely reactions with a high degree of probability. This gathered intelligence is key, enabling him to commit to his subsequent attacks with far greater decisiveness and confidence. We saw this process brilliantly executed throughout his dominant performance against Max Holloway at UFC 276. In the early rounds, Volkanovski used that quick in and out feint again and again, carefully watching and figuring out Holloway's preferred responses, those signature slips, pull counters, and angles he likes to take. Once Volk understood these tendencies, he'd show the same feint later in the fight, now anticipating Holloway's move. He wasn't just probing anymore, he was capitalizing, landing sharp straight rights or hooks precisely as Holloway reacted defensively, effectively shutting down Max's counters and landing heavy shots because he'd learned the pattern. The true effectiveness of Volkanovski's in and out movement shines when he actually commits to throwing punches off that same entry look. Because the initial movement appears identical, whether it's a feint or a genuine attack, he can land effectively while already being positioned for defensive evasion, making him incredibly difficult to counter cleanly. This quick burst rhythm poses major problems for more flat-footed fighters who need time in the pocket to find their timing. Often, they simply can't set their feet and respond before Volkanovski is hit and moved. His ability to execute these explosive movements stems significantly from his physical build and typical stance. His lower center of gravity, powerful leg drive, and compact frame provide a stable yet dynamic base. Let's zoom in on his exits specifically. Notice how rarely he moves straight back. Instead, Volkanovski often employs sharp pivots off the center line as he retracts, using quick lateral hops or shuffles to create space sideways. or exits diagonally away from the opponent's power side. This multi-directional, defensively aware exiting is key to why opponents struggle to track him down and land flush. Another critical element in Volk's game is the rear hip feint, a technique that makes the opponent think that there's a kick headed their way. Volk will sell it as a roundhouse, a low kick, even a teep, which is a fantastic option for covering a bit of space. Fighters are forced to respect the feints of Volk because his kickboxing prowess and how frequently he actually throws kicks. Plus, just like other tactics we've already discussed, it disrupts the opponent's offensive flow, resets engagements, and helps Volk find new paths to damage. His opponents can never truly establish a rhythm in fights, making it extremely difficult to generate momentum and sustained offensive attacks. Leading the charge in his striking arsenal is a whip-like snapping jab, a versatile weapon adept at targeting either the head with startling precision or digging sharply to the body to disrupt rhythm and breathing. Its effectiveness stems from being exceptionally quick and relentlessly accurate, serving not just as a standalone point scorer, but as a crucial key that unlocks intricate and damaging punch combinations. A particularly favored sequence for the man from down under is the foundational jab cross, a rapid 1-2 punch that often serves as a prelude to further offense. Yet, his reliance isn't solely on setting up the power right hand, demonstrating sophisticated use of his lead. Even when Volk doesn't deploy the cross, he's just as capable of doubling or tripling down with his jab. The rear feint specifically also creates space for kicking attacks. Volkanovski masterfully employs stance switches to keep his opponents off balance, often pairing this tactic with his inside low kick. While the low kick itself is a potent weapon, he frequently uses the commitment it draws to launch a powerful switch overhand right. Careful tape study of Volk's striking game also reveals another subtle move, which is his lead leg feint. While this feint sets up potential offensive attacks, it also provides Volk defensive insurance and safety. In elevating his leg, he can better check incoming kicks to his lead leg. So, when they're in the middle of throwing a kick and Volk jumps in, the fighter has to take some heat off of the strike because they're at risk of being kicked or punched as well. The lead leg feint especially instills caution because it can closely resemble an incoming oblique kick, widely considered one of the most dangerous techniques in combat sports. Instead of always following through with the oblique kick after this feint, Volk frequently uses the reaction he draws to land a sharp inside leg kick to the thigh or calf. The fourth key feint we see Volkanovski employ is the level change feint, a time-tested technique fundamental to mixed martial arts striking, especially for fighters with credible grappling skills. This feint involves mimicking the initial movements of a takedown attempt, forcing an opponent to consider the possibility of defending a shot. While many fighters use this, it becomes particularly potent in Volkanovski's hands, precisely because he has built a career demonstrating genuine wrestling superiority. His opponents must respect the possibility of a takedown, forcing them to react defensively. When he does commit to shooting off that same initial motion, the entry is often quicker and more disguised, improving his chances of successfully securing takedowns. His ability to change levels quickly allows him to get underneath their initial sprawl defense and gain faster and more direct access to their hips, a critical step for securing takedown entries. Because fighters would rather stand than be dominated on the mat against Volk, they are much more eager to drop their hands to defend takedowns than to protect their upper body. The punches that hurt the most are often the ones you don't see coming. The level change feint also makes Volk harder to hit by changing the lining and positioning of his head in a vertical fashion. He's already a small fighter with a low center of gravity and difficult to land on, but this feint makes him even smaller and trickier to punch or kick. This feint, combined with his fast twitchiness and solid head movement, make him consistently a moving target. Mastering 4 pillars of feinting: his dynamic in and out footwork, deceptive stance switches, threatening leg feints, and convincing level changes allowed Alexander Volkanovski to craft a striking style perfectly suited to overcome his physical attributes and dominate the featherweight division. If you're keen to explore another facet of elite striking, click here for our video on the secrets of switch hitting. From the Modern Martial Artist, we wish you happy training.